In London, there is a famous statue of Winston Churchill. It shows him standing strong with a firm face. This is the image many people have of him, a great war hero. He is remembered as the man who led Britain during a very difficult war. He gave powerful speeches and helped his country stay strong when danger was everywhere. Many see him as the savior of his nation. But before 1940, for almost 50 years, many people saw Churchill differently. They thought he was a risky politician, a man who often made big mistakes. He was blamed for many bad events and was not very popular in politics. This makes us ask a big question. How did a man known for many failures become the great leader who saved his country? How can one person be both a hero and someone who made huge errors, like the terrible Gallipoli campaign? Why was this great war leader voted out of office soon after the war ended? This book will look at Winston Churchill not as a perfect hero. Instead, it will show how his biggest strengths and his worst weaknesses were actually the same. The things that made him fail many times were also the things that helped him succeed when Britain needed him most. His strong will, his refusal to give up, and his readiness to take big risks often caused problems. But in 1940, these same qualities made him the only leader who could guide Britain through the war. To truly understand Churchill, we must look at his whole life, the good and the bad, to see how this complex man changed history. 2. A young man's mistakes. Winston Churchill made big mistakes early in his career. The first was the Gallipoli campaign in World War I. In 1915, Churchill was First Lord of the Admiralty. He strongly supported a bold plan. British ships would attack the Dardanelles, a narrow sea passage. The goal was to reach Constantinople, Turkey's capital. This would remove Turkey from the war and open a path to help Russia. But the plan did not work. Ottoman defenses were much stronger than expected. British ships hit mines and sank. When the naval attack failed, Churchill pushed for soldiers to land on the Gallipoli Peninsula. On April 25th, Allied forces, including British, Australian, and New Zealand troops, landed there. They faced very strong Turkish forces. It became a terrible fight, like trench warfare. Many soldiers died. Over 8 months, 44,000 Allied soldiers were killed. More than 250,000 were hurt or became sick. The Anzac forces from Australia and New Zealand lost over 11,000 men. By January 1916, the remaining troops had to leave. This campaign was a complete failure. Churchill received most of the blame. He was removed from his important job in May 1915. Later, he left the government and went to fight as a soldier in France. The shadow of Gallipoli followed him for many years and hurt his name. People often asked about it and doubted his judgment. A decade later, Churchill made another important mistake, this time with money. In April 1925, he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, in charge of Britain's money. He decided that Britain would return to the gold standard. This meant the value of the British pound was set very high, as it was before the war. Many experts, like John Maynard Keynes, warned him not to do this. They said the pound was too expensive and it would damage the economy. The experts were right. To keep the pound's value, wages and prices had to drop by 10%. This was very difficult for ordinary people. British goods became too expensive for other countries to buy. Industries like coal and textiles suffered greatly. Many workers lost their jobs and the economy slowed down. This bad decision contributed to the general strike of 1926. 3 million workers stopped working to support coal miners. Churchill's economic policy created the problems that led to this big strike. For years, Britain's economy struggled. These early mistakes made many people see Churchill as a reckless person whose decisions could not be trusted. He often gambled with big things and lost. 3. Alone in politics. After the year 1929, Winston Churchill was no longer part of the government. For about 10 years, from 1929 to 1939, he was out of power. People called this period his wilderness years. During this time, many in his own party and the public saw him as old-fashioned. He was alone in his political ideas, often disagreeing with almost everyone. One big reason for his isolation was his strong fight against India getting self-government. Mahatma Gandhi was leading peaceful movements for India's freedom, and many British people believed India should have more control over its own affairs. Even some conservative leaders thought this, but Churchill did not agree. He strongly believed that Britain must keep ruling India. He used very harsh words about Indian leaders and said that self-rule would bring problems and chaos. He thought British rule was best for India's progress. His ideas and strong language made him seem very out of touch. People felt he was stuck in the past, an old-fashioned imperialist who did not understand the changing world. Churchill also made himself unpopular during the abdication crisis in 1936. King Edward VIII wanted to marry an American woman who had been divorced. The government and the Church of England said this was not acceptable for a king. Prime Minister Baldwin and most politicians agreed that the king should not marry her if he wanted to stay king. But Churchill supported the king. He believed the king should have more time or find another way. He even tried to speak in Parliament to defend the king, but other politicians shouted him down. They saw his actions as a challenge to the government and thought he was trying to gain power. King Edward VIII eventually decided to give up his throne. Churchill's support for him made people doubt his judgment even more. He seemed emotional, perhaps too loyal to the monarchy, and not practical enough. Both his firm stand on India and his role in the abdication crisis made him appear old-fashioned and untrustworthy to many. He was seen as a politician whose ideas were no longer right for Britain's future, and someone who would go against his own party. 4. A warning for Britain. During the 1930s, Winston Churchill was out of government. Most politicians and the public did not like his ideas. But in these years, Churchill saw a great danger. He watched Germany and its new leader, Adolf Hitler. From 1932, Churchill spoke often about the threat of Nazi Germany. He warned that Germany was building many weapons. He said Hitler wanted to take back lands Germany had lost. Churchill told the British government that they must make their army stronger. He especially called for Britain to build more airplanes and improve its Royal Air Force. He knew that Germany's Air Force was growing very fast. But many people in Britain did not listen to Churchill. After the terrible First World War, people wanted peace. They hoped that talking to Hitler could stop another war. They thought Germany had reasons for being angry, and that Hitler would be happy with some small agreements. Churchill's strong warnings seemed too much. People thought he was always looking for a fight. They remembered how he had been wrong before, and how he had been very stubborn about India and the king. They believed he was a man who loved war too much. This was a strange situation. Churchill's stubborn nature had made him unpopular for many years. His strong opinions meant he often disagreed with others. But this same stubbornness also made him right about Hitler. He refused to change his mind, even when everyone else wanted to believe in peace. He kept warning Britain, even when it made him look foolish. Later, the country would see that Churchill's warnings were true. Germany grew its military, and war started in Europe. The danger Churchill spoke of became real. His unpopular stand was, in the end, exactly what Britain needed to hear. 5. The War Leader. In May 1940, Britain faced its most dangerous moment. Germany had won many battles in Europe. The British government needed a strong leader. Winston Churchill became the Prime Minister. Many people had thought he was a failure before this, but now Britain needed his strong will. Churchill felt that all his past life had prepared him for this big moment. He saw it as his destiny to lead the country through hard times. Churchill's words gave the country great hope. His speeches were powerful and full of passion. He told the British people that they would fight on the beaches and never give up. These famous words brought the country together. They made people feel strong and determined, inspiring them against the enemy. His clear refusal to surrender to Nazi Germany was exactly what Britain needed when other leaders might have made peace. During the summer and autumn of 1940, the Battle of Britain took place. German planes attacked Britain from the air, day and night. Churchill led the country through these difficult months. He visited damaged cities and spoke to people after air raids, known as the Blitz. His courage gave others courage. He made sure Britain's Air Force had what it needed to fight back. His constant presence helped raise spirits during the heavy bombing. Churchill's strong belief that Britain must fight on changed everything. He did not listen to those who wanted to negotiate with Hitler. His stubbornness, which had made him unpopular before, was now a great strength. He believed Britain would win, even when it seemed impossible. This firm stand kept the country from falling and gave people the strength to endure. His refusal to compromise was very important for survival. He also worked very hard to build strong friendships with other powerful countries. He knew Britain could not win the war alone. He talked often with President Franklin D. Roosevelt of the United States of America, convincing him to offer support. He also formed a crucial alliance with the Soviet Union after Germany attacked them. These partnerships were incredibly important. They helped bring together a strong force against Germany, eventually leading to the Allied victory. Churchill's leadership helped ensure Britain and its allies continued the fight until the war was won. 6. The lost election. On May 8, 1945, World War II in Europe ended. Winston Churchill stood before happy crowds in London. He told them, "This is your victory." Britain had won the war, and Churchill was very popular. Most people admired him. But just 2 months later, something surprising happened. The British people voted in a general election on July 5th. When the results came out on July 26th, Churchill's party, the Conservatives, lost badly. The Labour Party won with many more seats. Churchill was very shocked by this result. The people did not dislike Churchill himself. He was still seen as the man who led Britain to victory. But they wanted a different future for their country. Britain had fought for 6 long years. People had faced bombings, rationing, and many hardships. Now they wanted big changes. The Labour Party had a plan called "Let Us Face the Future." They promised a new system to help everyone, a welfare state. This plan aimed to fix 5 big problems: poverty, sickness, lack of education, bad housing, and unemployment. They wanted a national health service, good jobs, and better homes for all. Churchill and the Conservatives focused on his war leadership. They spoke about less government control and lower taxes. Churchill even said Labour's plans might need a Gestapo, a secret police, which was a bad comparison. People remembered the Conservative Party from the 1930s, a time of high unemployment and economic problems. They did not want to go back to that. Churchill was a strong leader for war. His courage and speeches inspired the nation to fight. But for peace, people needed someone different. They needed leaders who could build new houses, create jobs, and start a health service. Churchill's strengths in wartime were not the same strengths needed for peacetime rebuilding. The people felt the time for their war leader had passed. 7. A difficult hero. Today, people look at Winston Churchill differently. For many years, he was seen mostly as a great hero who saved Britain. But now, his story is discussed more openly, and people talk about his less positive sides too. This includes his deeply held views on race and the British Empire. Churchill believed that some races were stronger or better than others. He also strongly believed Britain should keep its large empire, often using offensive language against those seeking independence, like in India. He felt British rule was essential for progress there. Another difficult part of his legacy is the Bengal famine in 1943. Millions of people in India died from lack of food. Critics argue that Churchill's policies made the famine worse, prioritizing wartime needs for British troops over sending food aid to Bengal from other countries. While many factors caused the famine, Churchill's government was slow to help, and his personal views on Indians likely lessened his sympathy for their suffering, affecting aid efforts. The bombing of German cities during the war also brings up tough questions. For instance, the city of Dresden was heavily bombed by Allied forces in 1945, causing many civilian deaths. Churchill supported strategic bombing to weaken Germany, but he later expressed doubts about such widespread destruction. This leads to moral discussions about war tactics and the killing of innocent people. These points lead to a big debate. How should we judge historical figures like Churchill? Some argue we must acknowledge his racism, imperialism, and harmful decisions, as they caused real suffering. They say we cannot ignore these flaws, even for a wartime leader. His statues, for example, have seen protests from groups who see him as a symbol of colonial power. Others argue it is unfair to judge people from the past by today's values. They believe Churchill lived in a different time with different beliefs. For them, his crucial leadership during World War II, where he saved Britain from Nazi Germany, should be the main focus of his legacy. Both sides agree he was a product of his time, but they disagree on how much that excuses his actions or changes how we remember him. Understanding Churchill fully means looking at both the good and the bad, recognizing that a hero can also be a difficult and controversial figure. 8. The final idea. Churchill's life shows a strange truth. For much of his 50 years in politics, people saw him as a failure. He made big mistakes, like the Gallipoli campaign and the gold standard, which hurt Britain's economy. His strong opinions about India and King Edward VIII also made him unpopular. These failures came from deep parts of his character: his love for risk, his stubbornness, and his refusal to agree with others. Yet, these very same traits made him the right leader for Britain in 1940. When Nazi Germany threatened the country, Churchill's readiness to take risks became his strong resolve. His stubbornness, which people once disliked, turned into firm defiance against Hitler. His strong belief in Britain, which once looked like old-fashioned ideas about the empire, gave the nation hope that it would win. We must understand that Churchill was not a simple hero. He was a complex man with both great strengths and big weaknesses. His bravery and his wrong beliefs, his quick thinking and his sometimes reckless nature were all part of him. We cannot separate the good parts from the bad parts because they came from the same strong personality. To truly honor Churchill, we should not hide his mistakes or excuse his hurtful views. We must look at his whole legacy. His statues can stay, but we must also ask hard questions. We can celebrate his achievements, but we must also remember the people who suffered because of his decisions. His story teaches us that history is complicated. Great people are rarely simple figures of good or bad. Often, the very qualities that help someone change history are also the ones that cause them to fail at other times. Churchill was often wrong, but he was right when it mattered most, in 1940. Without his leadership then, the outcome of the Second World War might have been very different. We must accept this paradox. Churchill was an indispensable failure. He was a flawed savior. We should remember him completely, with all his strengths and all his flaws. This is how we truly understand the complex story of Winston Churchill. What do you think? Can a leader be both a hero and a failure at the same time?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.